Public Servants Association, the Revenue Service, says the PSA has accepted an 8% wage increase. SARS employees have been on strike since last Thursday. They demanded an 11.4% wage increase. SARS had offered 8%. Trade union Nahau is still consulting its members on whether to accept the deal. SARS Takalani Mosekwa says they are expecting PSA members to return to work tomorrow. And we are joined by the PSA's Deputy General Manager, Tahir Maepa, to talk a little bit more about this. So, first of all, a very good evening and thank you so much for joining us. Why the big disparities? So you were asking for more than 11% and SARS was offering 8%. Why did you find yourself settling for 8%? And is it settling?
Well, we have settled on 8%. And by the way, this 11% was our opening demand. It was not our final demand. It was subject to negotiations. And if you would remember, the first offer that we received from SASA was 5%. So we pushed them up to 7%, and that's where the dispute arose. Following the dispute, we then declared, we went on strike, and following our strike action, we then got another offer of an additional 1%. But what is also significant in terms of this agreement, this is way above inflation, more than what the public servants got in the previous agreements. And what is also more important is that the delinking of performance to salary increment.
Okay, so before we get to that, let's talk about the inflation-related increase. What is the projected increase and for how long?
Well, the increase for this year from today is 8%. Definitely that is in the bag. And the subsequent year, which is year 2 and year 3, is going to be projected CPI plus 2%. As you would know that projected CPI is more than CPI. So basically we managed to leverage as far as the subsequent years, year 2 and year 3. Okay,
so you were telling me about what else is part of the agreement. Does that include prenatal and vaccination leave as well as long service
recognition? Yes, we have those two demands that were also met, and the fact that our members will also, as an addition, continue to get their performance bonuses, which is additional income into the pockets of our members.
And then just in terms of the other union, Nahau, they're obviously still consulting with their members, but when we spoke to them earlier on, they said as far as they're concerned, they're continuing to strike. And I'm just curious, not necessarily asking you to answer on their behalf, but you did start off at a like-minded point. What do you think the barrier would be at not accepting this offer? Is it possible that other workers believe that the offer could be better?
I wouldn't know what will be the barrier, because from the onset we've been together on this, and then we sort of had an understanding. But as you would know, that everything is subject to the mandate of our members.
Yes, absolutely.
We as the PSA, due to the fact that we've got systems and very sophisticated systems in terms of communication with our members, so it's easy for us. The drop of the button, we're able to get to our members and get feedback. So that is why it was easy and quicker for us to get our mandate. And how is within their right to consult as extensively as possible. But our hope is that their members will also accept this particular deal, because we believe that this deal is indeed the best under the circumstances.
So from what you're saying, then I gather that you can guarantee that workers will be back at work tomorrow.
Our members are definitely going back to work tomorrow. There's an agreement. As you would know, that the PSA is a majority union within SARS. So basically this agreement is binding and it will be implemented, and we're expecting that our members will be getting their salary increments.
The impact on the strike, on SARS operations, this is the question that we're also asking our viewers, but perhaps you'd like to share with us the impact of your strike.
Well, the impact was massive. That is why they had to call us back Sunday evening back to the negotiating table. They miscalculated the resolve of our members. As you know, that SARS has never been on strike, I don't know in how long. They thought that us calling our members to the streets, it's something that was a wishful thinking from the leadership of the union. But this was the aspirations of our members. They were determined to go all the way. And the 2 days that we were on strike, it had a massive impact.
Which is what? What exactly?
Well, it has firstly financial impact on the country in terms of revenue collection. Majority of our border gates could not receive, or goods could not leave. So the collection of revenue, and this country, basically its only survival is revenue collection. That in itself, we are projecting that we may have lost over 500 million in those 2 days, which is almost what we were demanding. So it was unnecessary of SARS to have pushed us to the limit. However,
I'm curious about this. The deadline, obviously, for tax returns would have expired at the end of the month, which was Friday. Yes. Your being on strike would have affected people who would have wanted to submit their returns. Yes. Any word with SARS or any conversation about whether there's going to be an extension of that deadline, people would be assisted?
Well, we are not sure exactly what SARS management intends doing, because of this is their own doing. They created this situation, and they need to take responsibility for it. The acting commissioner and his management team, we could have resolved this thing last week already.
But as a people-centered organization, surely that would be something that you would argue for or push for, given that it would impact on people's livelihoods, small to medium businesses,
well, to be honest with you, we tried. Those were some of our reasoning to SARS, to say that you must understand the implication of pushing us to this strike action, and we could have avoided this strike action. Unfortunately, by then we didn't have a partner who was willing to listen. They needed a little bit clapping to listen, and they did ultimately, but at the cost of the country and those small businesses, of course.
But what do you think is then likely to happen if there is no extension? So, as I mentioned, some would be adversely affected. It would be to a great loss of some who are just trying to make a living or just be tax compliant. What is likely? I know you say it's management's prerogative, but
the sensible thing to do is to give an extension. We are back at work. We are willing to catch up, even if it means that we do a little bit over time to make sure that we capture whatever that remains. We are ready. We are ready to assist where we can.
And given the fact that we are going into elections, just as a matter of curiosity, where public servants sit at this point, the conditions under which they work in, what are their hopes as a PSA?
Well, as an organization, obviously we are apolitical. We try our level best to move away from politics. But what is important is that for this democracy to work, we are encouraging all citizens, including our members, to participate in the next general elections, because of non-participation is not going to help in trying to channel this country to a positive outlook. If we are concerned about the country and where we want to take this country, we're saying to all our members, go out there and vote for the party that you believe is giving the aspirations, your personal aspirations, so that we can help our democracy to be nourished and to move forward.
Thank you so much. Chair Tahir Maepa is the PSA's Deputy General Manager. Let's take you back to Stephen now.
Tapiso, thanks very much indeed. Khoisan communities say they're disappointed that most of the recommendations of a Human Rights Commission report have not been implemented.